A message from the Brown Beret Organization. Dear community, there has been an unreasonable upsurge in the hostile anti-immigrant climate in which there has been cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment reported in multiple detention centers across the country. The Trump administration and cronies continue demeaning humans, animals, and sacred sites and natural resources right in our faces. They have purposely intensified criminalization and mass detention of migrants and other immigrant people seeking safety, prioritizing profit once again over human life. This has been a clear message to impoverished brown people and other immigrants. The point is to harshly punish, dehumanize, and hide the suffering of people in detention. We must see through their lies and distractions. Their scapegoating isn't just a diversion. It's a calculated effort to hide their deepest, most heinous crimes. Decades of corruption are intertwined in scandals like the Epstein case. Just recently, on February 18th, Reuters News revealed that New Mexico's Department of Justice is investigating allegations originally exposed by the U.S. Department of Justice that Jeffrey Epstein ordered the bodies of 2 foreign girls be buried outside of his ranch. An unredacted email from 2019 shows how far they'll go to conceal these atrocities. Fast forward to 2026, on February 22nd, violence erupted in Mexico after the death of a cartel leader shortly after the release of the files, suspected as a distraction and power grab. We condemn all violent retaliation against innocent families. This chaos is no accident. It's rooted in systemic neglect. Today, February 28th, 2026, reports confirm the Iranian leader's death and 108 casualties from Israeli-U.S. strikes, even targeting girls' schools. We denounce the attacks on the Iranian peoples, and targeting children with malice is just monstrous. They are the future, and these regimes want to crush it purposely. Trump's sanctions have also pushed Cuba to the brink, currently causing needless suffering. Fuel, water, food, medicine shortages as the regime clings to power in undisguised desperation. Epidemics spread, repressions worsen, and the ruling class refuses to negotiate or listen. But it's time for change. We must stand united against these imperialist horrors and demand true justice. But let's go back a little and speak directly to our community. There are still many in our Chicano community lacking awareness or empathy, while the Chicano identity has been systematically erased, dismissed, and reduced to stereotypes. People often think only of jail-ridden cholo culture or other stereotypes about us, and many people are still very non-inclusive of others. Our rich history, our cultura as brown warriors, has been erased at every turn. The movement has been stagnated and infiltrated by colonization, the Catholic Church, and currently systemic forces and agents infiltrated within our own circles who know that if we reclaim our identity as original peoples of this land, it threatens Big Brother's control. This chaos is no accident. It's rooted in systemic neglect and corruption, with Israel at every turn, reported to have trained cartels and sold thousands of weapons to Mexico from 2006 to 2018. Their shadowy ties go back generations. Did you know that Israel once protected a judge involved in the disappearance of the 43 students? In Ciudad Juarez, over 2,500 women have been murdered since 1993. This ongoing horror stems from centuries of colonialism, repression, and exploitation, conditions that push community into despair and violence. Instead of addressing these roots, we're kept distracted, and we are kept in turmoil by those who benefit from chaos. Rumors of cartel femicide linked to foreign interests seem more plausible than ever. Recently, President Sheinbaum declared she would not pursue charges against the Mexican elite named in the explosive files, betraying her promise to serve her people. If you believed in political promises, this is a wake-up call. Violence and corruption are systemic. They're tools used to maintain power. Police brutality, abuse, and collusion continue, often hidden behind a facade of silence and fear. But through it all, we have to stay vigilant. The truth is out there, and only by seeing clearly can we demand real justice and break free from these cycles of corruption. The U.S. and Israeli regimes continue to support terrorizing systems of oppression, committing atrocities against Palestinians, seizing land in Palestine, and echoing land thefts in Mexico, driven by colonialism and imperialism's relentless thirst for land and resources. Many refuse to recognize Palestine's sovereignty because it threatens their imperial power. Meanwhile, Trump's reckless military campaigns from 2025 to 2026, including bombing Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Venezuela, and threatening Colombia and Greenland, expose a very dangerous obsession with violence, dismissing diplomacy and risking global catastrophe. They fear acknowledgement of our roots, just as they try to erase the Palestinian identity. deny their sovereignty, and dispossess them of their land. We know our power. We know and feel our land calling us for help in our souls, our history, our culture. It's time to reclaim it. This is a matter of survival. The Brown Berets and all our gente in the struggle are outraged, and rightfully so, by the recent revelations of the atrocities committed by the Epstein elite. We've known for years that the puppet masters pull the strings of terror in our communities, fueling gentrification, displacement, endless bills, skyrocketing rent, tickets, fines, poverty, incarceration, violence. The release of those files was shocking, yes, but it also confirmed what we, people born in the struggle, already knew, that the systemic cover-up of human trafficking, exploitation, and murder of women, men, children, elders has always been by those in power. The malice, the greed, the indifference. They enjoy their sick games, protected by government, corporate financiers, PACs, ICE, detention centers, and even those who support Trump. We are witnessing an emergency unlike any seen before, and we are grateful some folks are finally waking up. Our people are under attack, kidnapped under the guise of law, treated like cattle by racist and self-loathing vendidos. Numbers of detainees are suffering in hellish conditions, overcrowded cells, physical and psychological abuse, denial of hygiene. The following is just a short list of detention centers guilty of abusive procedures. Adelanto Detention Center, Adelanto, California. Found to have universal problems with medical record keeping and unsafe suicide watch practices. Staff has blocked investigators from speaking with detainees. California City Immigration Processing Center, California City, California. Termed a torture chamber by detainees, reports of medical neglect, frigid temperatures, and insect infestation. Downtown Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles, California. Detainees held in a basement with limited food and water. Reports of people sleeping standing up due to lack of space. Reports of protesters taken in here and housed hours, days, up to months with no bail. Most have had their charges dropped. The Everglades Detention Facility, aka Alligator Alcatraz in Florida. Reported use of the box, a 2x2-foot cage for punitive shackling in the sun, maggot-infested food, and overflowing sewage of sleeping areas. Chrome North Service Processing Center in Florida has documented severe medical neglect, physical beatings by guards, and extreme overcrowding at 249% capacity. The Most Shannon Valley Processing Center in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania. Allegations of staff ignoring serious health conditions and blaming lack of treatment on funding delays. The Stewart Detention Center in Georgia. Reports of sexual assault by staff and multiple deaths, including suicides linked to prolonged solitary confinement. The Secot Mega Prison in El Salvador. Cited by Human Rights Watch for reports of torture, ill treatment, and lack of judicial access. There are more detention centers, but these were just a few. Keep note that migrant detention centers have always been referred to as ice boxes by our people. Rounding up and deportation of between 300,000 and 2 million Mexican migrants and citizens dates back to the Mexican Repatriation Act of 1929 to 1936. To all our relative casualties of this incompetent immigration system and its bloodthirsty, demeaning agents, we carry you in our hearts daily as we navigate through colonial subjugation. An ICE memo reveals, as of 2026, their plans to expand detention capacity through 20 through 30 warehouses, with 9 recent purchases across the U.S. as a part of a $38.3 billion initiative. Local residents of the newly purchased warehouses and officials are concerned about the impact of the planned centers on communities, with many urging a halt to development. We are done begging, crying, and asking. We are demanding it. The current shadow banning, censoring, and banning of our social media platforms should be an eye-opener for everyone. Both ICE's training and exchanges with Israel involve serious human rights violations. ICE officers have participated in seminars organized by groups like the ADL, learning counterterrorism tactics, and both use Israeli AI-powered surveillance tools like Palantir and Cellbrite to monitor us, constantly tracking and predicting our every move. This has been coined a deadly exchange between the U.S. and Israeli governments that promotes racial profiling, repression, and invasive surveillance, leading to some of the worst degrading human rights abuses. While some see it as a standard cooperation, we highlight its harmful impact. We see the connections, ultimately with the Epstein class at the top. We see the truth behind what it really is and always has been. Raza, community, we ask that you continue moving with your whole heart and onward, warriors. We must continue to organize to empower our communities. Mexica Tiawi y que vive la causa.
whenever I feel like these people are, they have too much power, the enemy is too big, they have like all these resources and we don't have a lot. I think about the Vietnamese war and the Vietnamese people. They were fighting big powers. They were fighting the US. They were fighting China. They were fighting France. All of these countries have way more resources than us. But again and again, we prevailed. Like we won. We just kicks them out like every single time. And we were also very smart about our strategies as long as the communities work together, right? So someone also asked, how did the Vietnamese, how being a Vietnamese kind of inspired me to learn about Meshtastic and off-grid communication as well. So during the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese people built an underground tunnel. It's called the Cu Chi Tunnel, and to hide themselves from like all these soldiers who are like just on the ground, like going after like houses and stuff like that. And the Cu Chi Tunnel is basically off-grid, built by the people. And it's really complicated to the point that if the American soldiers like went down there, they would just get lost because the systems, like how if they didn't have a map, it would just like be very hard for them to navigate and stuff like that. But the people were able to have the maps. They were communicating with each other, and they built the whole system themselves. So they were very creative. They showed me that, as long as we work together, we can accomplish everything, and we can just like kick out the bad guys.
Yeah, we got the numbers, we're gonna fight, so they can't fuck us. We got rights, and we want justice, so we're gonna fight. These young kids in American breadlines, and billionaire criminals will never see that time. And they don't care who they hurt in the headlines. The fruits of our labor turning into their red wine. And they drunk off power, they begging us to go to war for them. They're cowards, it's poverty to work 70 hours. You lost civil rights with the towers. They can deny, they keep lying. They got AI to keep on spying. They make billions when people die. They gon' fuck around and wake a sleeping giant. It's cash for artillery to keep troops on a block from Caracas to the Philippines. Fighting back with our neck on the line, but we putting their necks in the guillotine. No war but class war. The rich attack poor. What the fuck you stand for? Fight back.
Video can change everything. This one video is all it takes to call bullshit on Renee Nicole Good's murder as self-defense. This one video is all it takes to expose the danger when those in power get to justify the use of violence on us through their narratives. To protect ourselves and our community from abuse, we need to learn how to film law enforcement effectively. Here's how. Start filming before something bad happens. The before is crucial because it provides context for violence that is often lied about. Record as soon as you see an interaction. Keep a distance from a scene. Things get chaotic fast, and you get more when you're further away. Also, if someone's already recording from your angle, move to a different one so we have more perspectives. When you're recording, hold the camera horizontal. It captures more. Don't move too much or too fast. Don't zoom. Zooming reduces quality. I also recommend against saying anything because dialogues and sounds are important evidence too. Also, if you sound too emotional, your video can be rejected in court because it creates bias. Keep your camera focused on law enforcement instead of bystanders to protect others' identities. When you're done, make sure your Wi-Fi is on and your video is uploaded to the cloud. Don't edit the video. Put it in a folder called Abuse. How to share your video. If you want to blur someone's face, make a copy first and then edit the copy. InShot is a great app for this because your videos are stored locally instead of the cloud. Before sharing, consider if you want to be anonymous or not. You might get harassed, but it can bring more credibility to your video. Send a video to advocacy organizations or even journalists to amplify your impact. For journalists, look up the tip line. All of that is in this post on our Cyberlixir Instagram page and our website at cyberlixir.com. Video can change.
Welcome to this episode of the People's Core. This is a community survival episode of the People's Core, and the People's Core is an extension of the Black Panther Party. It exists in order to create a coalition globally to create united sovereignty through a method called the Four Winds approach to revolution.
I'm Danielle, director of the People's Corps. I'm joined by Mark, who is Mark Wayne, who is a part of the Panther Party, and Danacea, who is a cyber guardian, philosopher, hacker, and activist. Welcome to the show, Danacea.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Mark, for having me here. Hi, everyone. I'm Danacea. I'm from Vietnam, and I'm a proud Vietnamese. I carry our spirit of fighting imperialism with me. That's why I'm really proud to be on this episode. I'm currently residing in the US. I'm a cybersecurity professional, a hacker, an activist, and the CEO of Cyberlixir. I'm not sure if you can see my hoodie, but this is our logo. Our motto is cybersecurity for the people's safety, privacy, and liberty. We do two main things. One is supporting numerous human rights organizations, journalists, high-risk activists, exiled activists globally with cybersecurity to protect them from harassers, corporates, surveillance, oppressive governments who most of the time, as you already know, all work together, right? And we do this because activism is so necessary to protect people's rights, our dignity, to protect the values that we love, but it's also extremely risky. You know, tyrants love to use technology to crush dissent, and most people don't understand technology well. This is why I also create content on social media, which is how we all met, not only on ways people can protect themselves from oppressive technology, but also how people can use technology to fight back.
Yeah, and that was really displayed in the videos that we watched just before we introed you there. So important, you know, to be aware of these things. And I know myself, I discovered you probably about a couple of months ago when I was doing a lot of consideration of like security, especially I'm an activist myself, you know, trying to protect myself. But Mark, how did you stumble upon Danacea's page?
Same. I think it was more than a few months ago, and I saw her talking about decentralized communication networks, and she just presented it in such a friendly way. It kind of like exudes a confidence that, hey, we could do that. Anybody could do that. So I was like, yes, this is exactly what I had envisioned when it came to us as the revolutionary body, thinking outside the box and thinking of ways in which we could better arm ourselves with technology that is not controlled by the ruling class, something that we can, you know, have backups to. That's normally in the prepper world. So for the longest time, the prepper world kind of had a monopoly on that, but it's like something that everybody should be thinking about.
For sure. Yeah. So Danacea, how did you get into this profession, this vocation, whatever you want to call it? What was the path that led you to helping people around the world protect themselves against surveillance and, you know, protect their data and identity and everything that comes with cybersecurity?
It started with a dining hall at my university. So I came here for school at UVA, and I went to the dining hall every day to talk to the workers and to get food from them as well. But I was particularly interested in their lives because I didn't meet lots of brown people, Black people, immigrants back in Vietnam. I was very focused on school, very focused on, you know, like trying to study and make money and stuff like that back in Vietnam. My parents wanted to kind of keep me in that bubble. Don't focus about anything else, basically. But when I came here, I started interacting with like Black and brown people at the dining hall. They were all so friendly. They were also loving when they gave me food. And so that's when I started to be more just like getting into this world where people were being oppressed by their bosses, like in the dining hall. Pretty much all their bosses were white people, and they had no regards for their well-being at all, the dining hall workers. And they started sharing with me about like how difficult it is to live in America as well, as like, you know, low income, working class. A lot of them had like 3 jobs. Several of them were immigrants, and they had to worry about like, maybe I'll get deported tomorrow. I don't have money for lawyers and stuff like that. And they were all like really hardworking people. They were all very loving people. And I was just like, I want to protect you all, like you don't deserve this, the system. The system is broken. And so that was when I was like, I want to use my skills, my knowledge to fight for the people, fight for these people because I love them. Right? So I actually studied philosophy back in UVA and I wanted to become a lawyer, but I looked at the LSAT, which is like an exam thing in the US for lawyers, and I was like, this is like a lot for me. This is too much. But at the same time, when I was studying ethics and philosophy, I there were lots of conversations about technology and how it can harm people's lives, people's societies, and stuff like that. And so I was like, I kind of want to know more about technology, and I still want to use my skills to protect the people. So what can I do? And so I started looking into different options, and cybersecurity was, you know, in the name, it's security, which means you get to defend people. And I also get to learn more about technology. So that's why I started my master's in cybersecurity. And yeah, that's how I'm here pretty much. Along the way, I've been looking into ways of how we can use technology to protect the people. Most of the things I learned in class was about how to use cybersecurity to protect corporate data, and I disliked it. So I've just been like learning my own ways by reaching out to different organizers, activist groups and stuff like that, talking about like what they need, how can I protect them. I'm talking to digital rights activists as well. And yeah, and then eventually I just like, I've been building my own thing. I have this cybersecurity channel because I want to teach people how to understand technology better in like, as Mark said, like in a more friendly way. Um, so they can protect themselves better.
Yeah, it's so important. And it's important that we pass this information on to each other as well and share the knowledge and, share pages like yours, and make sure that people are seeing the people who are, so knowledgeable in this. It could save a life. It could be that big, or it could at least, alert people, or, yeah, I know that we're going to talk about Meshtastic, which is such an amazing system that you've created. But before we get to that point, I do want to touch on something you said in the video about Renee Good. And obviously we've had the murder of Alex Pretty that happened yesterday at the hands of federal agents. I don't know whether they've confirmed it's ICE or Border Control, but it looks like it was ICE. You spoke in that video about how important it is to get the right footage, get the right, the right frame rate, don't zoom in, don't say anything, things like that. Can you talk on that, the seriousness of sometimes how this can really impact court cases and, people involved, and make sure justice is done when such an atrocity has happened?
I think that most of us have kind of already lost confidence in the court or the justice system. So when I teach people about like videoing, it's more about having evidence for the people. Like, this is the video, and you can see that this is, ICE murdered Renee Good, and yesterday, Alex Pretty, right? So the people can see how the system is lying to them, and that's really important. So yes, it can contribute to like the justice system and how like these people eventually can be criminalized in the future. But I think most people don't really care about that right now. They want to show the violence of ICE and like the system. And so that's why video is important. That's like the people's power, less for the justice system.
Yeah. Less for the justice system. Obviously, as you said, there's a lot of, or so it seems, a lot of corruption and gaslighting, and you can't argue with something that we've, like Renee Good's video, we saw in plain view, we saw it slowed down, we saw good quality footage of her, and that was so important, so that we the people can actually see what's happening whilst we are being gaslighted by governments and officials and supposed justice systems. But I guess
also, sorry.
Yeah,
I
go
want
for
to
it.
check
Yeah.
in with you. I want to check in with you guys as well. Like, how are you feeling as human beings? A lot of the time we want to get the work started. We want to just like fight, but we don't check in often about like how you feel. And it's been a very traumatic past few weeks for a lot of people. You know, like these murders, they just happen one after the other. And so many graphics are being shared on social media, and a lot of people are not used to this, seeing these things. So just how are you guys doing in general? How are you
Yeah,
feeling?
go for it, Mark. How are you doing?
Well, it's always like a balance. We get to that menticide that we were talking about, where you see the violence and you're tempted to be pushed into this place of despair. But that is by design. So the way I see it is like if their intention is to flood us with so much atrocity and visceral negativity, then I have to, I guess, out of revenge, I want to do the opposite. I want to focus on goals and missions. So I think looking at this whole thing from a militant point of view has helped me cope mentally with it, because as a militant, you have to see everything that's happening from an objective standpoint of strategy and tactics, instead of seeing myself as subjected to it. I have to see it. I have to look at opportunity, but I need to express myself with my comrades, which is part of strategy. You have to express the emotions you're feeling with your comrades, understanding that you're in this fight with them while you're keeping focused on the goals in front of you. And I think that's kind of like the balance I'm finding. I have to switch on two parts of my brain to look at the mission. We were talking about, Danacea asked a great question, how are we doing, which is
Yes, and
Yeah.
you were in the middle of
exactly
saying, you were
Yeah.
in the middle of saying how you were, and you were militant, and
which, by the way, is one of the first steps of protocol for the four winds, basically, is asking your neighbor, how are you doing? And then
Oh,
all the strategy for revolution kind of hangs on that one question when you really think about it. Like, to think that a global revolution that will upset the entire power structure that has subjected us all starts with the question of how you're doing, when you really think about it. And I find that to be poetic in some weird way.
it is.
I love that.
So,
Yeah.
should
we do your part again, Mark?
I got that part. I mean, I
you did?
that I got the timestamps marked out.
Okay. So shall I say how I'm doing then to continue it on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll get yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Okay, so action. So I yesterday was in a very bad place, and I was connecting with a comrade earlier who's in the People's Corps and the Black Panthers as well. And I said, I can only imagine how you're feeling, because yesterday when that happened, it literally it was the straw that broke the camel's back. It tipped me over the edge, and I just cried. I was supposed to be going out. It was a music event, and I was like, how can I go out now? How can I dance and be normal and all this? And I was really like, it takes a lot to make me cry these days, because we've gone through the 2 years of genocide, see that unfold, and unfortunately it primes your mind for disaster. But there's something about the brutality, the sheer brutality of that murder yesterday, and seeing it, it broke me. It absolutely broke me. And I did go out, and it was only a few hours, but when I was coming home, it was raining, and I just literally walked in the rain crying by myself in the dark, because I just thought, I just can't cope with this. It was a guttural feeling in me. And because I went from sadness to rage, and then I brought my rage online and I did a video, but then I went out, and then the sadness, the deep grief came back. So I'm okay, and I know how to look after myself. But Danacea, thank you for posing that question, because like Mark says as well, it's the starting point of the People's Corps, checking in on your community. How, literally that question, how are you doing? And not, oh, I'm fine, I'm this, and no. How are you actually doing? Because look at the world. So yeah, in answer to your question, I've felt the emotion, but like Mark, I get into then quite a militant mindset of strategy. Bigger picture, why are we doing what we're doing? For this reason. This is one of the many reasons we are doing this. We don't want to see this happen anymore. So I allow myself to feel the emotion, but I don't get dragged off by it. I pull it back when I've expressed it, and liaise with comrades and friends and stuff. And then, then it's just, look, we now need to stay steadfast, focused, eyes on the prize, and the prize is a world where we don't have to live with that level of authoritarianism and brutality at the hands of supposed authorities. No authorities, no more authorities, nothing, just flat structure, as it were, just like everybody's equal and proper liberation. So I'm just going to keep fighting until that day comes, but I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to be steadfast.
Thank you so much, Mark and Danielle, for just sharing your feelings and vulnerability. A lot of the time we feel like we need to keep showing that how strong we are, how controlled we are. But it's important to just show the side of, being human. That's how we connect to each other. And personally, I've also been very upset and angry, and my heart is still in pain. It's just been difficult to do anything or think well. And this is not the only thing, right? So many innocent people are being terrorized and harmed globally because of these murderers and exploitative system. And this is why we need communities like you guys. Dealing with this shit is hard and can be very lonely. But it's just been inspiring to see the Minneapolis people coming together and you guys doing this episode, regardless of what happens yesterday. There's a snowstorm outside today, but it warms my heart that I get to be in this space together with you two, to care together and fight together for the people.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think that is a real important conversation to have with people, especially when something so huge has happened. And it, unfortunately, it feels like there's going to be more. It's like it feels like a never-ending crescendo, but this is where we support each other, even in the people's core. So we're learning as we go. And the other day I was feeling completely burnt out and my head was a mess just because of the sheer, magnitude of what we're trying to achieve. Sometimes it's like and I thought, right, let's set up a well-being group, just so that we as comrades can say how we're feeling. And that's we've been using a general chat as well, just to kind of talk about what's going on and stuff, and to support each other is so important, to really let people have that space to go, I'm actually crying right now. I said it and someone else said it as well, and it's like, and some people were struggling because they're in Minnesota or they're near there or they're worried. It's scary times, especially in the US. It's not just genocides that are happening now. There's literal atrocities and just unimaginable things happening in the US, and it just feels like it's encroaching on the world, and it really is. It's when we said as Palestine activists, don't stay silent because it will come to you eventually. Well, it's here, and it's now in the US, and the US are good friends with the country that I live in. And then these guys are all friends and they just all think the same. They're all part of an insidious network of complete and utter corruption. And we have to be prepared. So we have to look after ourselves mentally and physically, and we have to be keep working towards this common goal, this whole coalition I mentioned at the beginning,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like going back to like what y'all were talking about as far as like, checking in. One of the way that the ruling class operates, it's very cold and cutthroat. And it's the way the CIA, CIA, NSA, all these operations work in military. It works on a very two-dimensional flat surfaced goal, which is profits, money. Right? At the end of the day, it's money. Well, the advantage that we have in consisting of compassionate and empathetic people, and combined with the skill sets that the ruling class also uses, the combination of those two is far more lethal than just having a flat goal of profit, which is why I know that we'll win, because our strategy is based on people, their complicated, intricate needs, the direct personal ties we have to people, combined with a strategic and militant goal of liberating ourselves. And you combine that with the technical expertise of people like Danacea, who is an empathetic human being and a lethal expert in technology and these general strategies. When you have an army of millions of those people, it's lethal because you're not only using your skills to defeat empire, but you're also getting the emotional support of the people around you as you do it. And it's completely decentralized. So that's why I'm optimistic despite us staring in the face of this ugly beast and what it's doing and the blood that's on its teeth from the people it's shred up, like what happened in Minneapolis. So what I would also like to say is that there's a saying in the military when I was in, they said that all the policies and procedures in the military are written in blood. What that means is that somebody got injured or hurt or something went wrong for that to make that policy a thing. So whenever we like have a policy about taping up all your straps so that you got nothing dangling, it's because some soldier got their strap caught in a door and he probably got killed, right? Well, the situation that happened with Alex Preddy, who was murdered pinned down and shot in cold blood because he was trying to protect a woman from child traffickers, essentially, who are Israeli trained terrorists. We should mourn, right? We should grieve and we should be angry, but that's not where it should stop. We have to then look at the situation and not let his sacrifice be in vain, both rhetorically or strategically, meaning we have to analyze what happened to them. There's a thing that crows do. Is it crows or ravens? But when a crow dies, is killed, whatever, they've shown that crow around the dead body and use the opportunity to talk about what happened, right? How did it happen? How did that crow die? They use it as a learning experience while they mourn. We need to have the same strategy in many ways. We got to analyze what happened to Alex Preddy to come up with strategies that can better protect us. So our policies going forward in this revolution needs to be written in Alex Preddy's blood. And I hate to term it that way, but essentially what it is, his death has to stay, it has to become a permanent fixture in how we go forward, that way that no comrade that has fallen is fallen in vain. They would want their death to be used as to influence the strategy going forward and what we can learn from it. That's my only comment on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's, we have to learn. And that's why we can't let the emotion overcome us, because it puts you either into freeze mode or, really rash behavior mode. And what we need to be now is completely coordinated and cohesive. And, the biggest global network of our time, because we're digitally connected, we should be able to do that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Danacea, since, the cyber world is your world?
Can you repeat that question? Like just the main
Yeah,
one?
it's just the importance of connecting globally. Like we have social media, that's great. We get to see the videos of things that are going on, but in terms of deeper connection and with security at the forefront of that, because when the People's Court was set up, and before it was even the People's Court, it was just a group of people who were revolutionaries. And I put together some guidelines and I made sure I got at least the basics down, and I'm not going to say what they are because obviously we don't know we don't know which organizations might watch this, but, it's just having these security protocols in place. And that was at the forefront of things for me. And when any time a person shared something that, had the tracking ID or something on it, I would remind them, don't do that, So, I guess the question is, in this era where we are so connected, how important do you think it is to connect in a very secure way, and how do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Fascism is growing everywhere, all around the world, and they're learning each other's styles, basically. They're copying each other, they're sharing their tactics, what's working well, what's not working well, how the people are reacting, what people are building. And you will see this like throughout this episode about Meshtastic as well. About Meshtastic, You will
good.
learn about like all these tactics throughout this Meshtastic episode as well. That's a lot of like tastic in there. Anyway, but
The
yeah,
tongue twister.
it's yeah, tongue twister. But it's important that we're, like they're working together. So we should be working together as well, sharing our knowledge, especially cybersecurity is something that can be, it's not like it can be implemented like globally, right? Like all of the ways that we can secure our devices, secure our laptops, ways we talk to each other on the internet. It's like a global system. So like this is something that we can like just share with each other and implement it everywhere.
Yeah.
Before we
And
get into
yeah.
the, sorry, go ahead, Danielle. My bad.
No, please.
Well, I was gonna say, Danacea, you mentioned at the very beginning about how you're Vietnamese, and how they have, the experience they have in fighting empire and guerrilla warfare and essentially Vietnamese patriotism. As being Vietnamese, how has I no doubt you have studied and read about like the resistance against imperialism in the Vietnam War. How much has that inspired you, throughout your life and the greater outlook of resistance against empire?
just in many different ways. One is emotionally, like whenever I feel like these people are, they have too much power. The enemy is too big. They have like all these resources and we don't have a lot. I think about the Vietnamese war and the Vietnamese people. They were fighting big powers. They were fighting the US. They were fighting China. They were fighting France. All of these countries have way more resources than us. But again and again, we prevailed. Like we won. We just kicks them out like every single time. And we were also very smart about our strategies as long as the communities work together, right? So someone also asked, how did the Vietnamese, how being a Vietnamese kind of inspired me to learn about Meshtastic and off-grid communication as well. So during the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese people built an underground tunnel. It's called the Cu Chi Tunnel, and to hide themselves from like all these soldiers who are like just on the ground, like going after like houses and stuff like that. And the Cu Chi Tunnel is basically off-grid, built by the people. And it's really complicated to the point that if the American soldiers like went down there, they would just get lost because the systems, like how if they didn't have a map, it would just like be very hard for them to navigate and stuff like that. But the people were able to have the maps. They were communicating with each other, and they built the whole system themselves. So they were very creative. They showed me that, as long as we work together, we can accomplish everything, and we can just like kick out the bad guys.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned underground tunnels and underground, literal underground networks for protection and, to anti-surveillance. Mark, I know that you mentioned it recently, and I know it's in the Four Winds approach, underground railroads. Do you think that sounds kind of similar to that approach?
Yeah, to address the tunnels real quick, how much has the Palestinian resistance benefited from the knowledge that they learned from the Vietnamese? Like they survived the greatest bombardment, concentrated bombardment in human history, and because they built tunnels, and they were constantly demonized for that. Why are you spending so much money on building tunnels instead of taking care of the people or whatever? Well, and it's like, why is the Pentagon spending trillions of dollars of American taxpayer money to build underground bunkers and bases? That's not cowardly. That's not cowardly of us. The Palestinian resistance is trying to survive so that they can, fight for the dignity of their people without just being slaughtered, in one fell swoop. So they have to take care of their people and build the tunnels. So building tunnels is a strategy that they have, that every patriotic resistance movement has had to do. And the Underground Railroad has been how slaves survived and were able to move to freedom. So I think that topic of Underground Railroad system is already being explored and already being used with the fascism we're seeing in the United States. And that is such an important part of the Four Winds, is developing those safe houses, those networks, those rat lines, as they're called sometimes, where you can move people who are vulnerable out of there. And it's always been a thing when it comes to resistance, and we have to start taking these methods seriously, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not just about, you know, tech security and online security. You've got to make yourself physically secure too, you know, especially when you're going to be surveilled. So we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. But it's really interesting to understand the history of that, you know, like tying it back to the Vietnam War and to the Palestinian genocide and, you know, all of that kind of thing. But what I was going to say earlier was about the kind of global, you know, keeping each other safe and connecting and coordinating and, you know, just making sure that, because this is global, the People's Core is a global effort, you know, everyone from every nation we want involved, as long as they're not the government or anyone like that. But we want to make sure that people, you know, can do things securely. And I know that you gave your thoughts on that, Danacea, but that really ties in, I think, with things like Meshtastic, you know, and that whole system that you've created, you know. Can you tell us more about that, please?
Should I play her video from Instagram?
Yes.
From that? Yeah, let's play that, and then we'll let her get into it. Let's do that real quick.
Don't be intimidated by Meshtastic if you're not technical. I'll explain and share a guide on how to easily set this up. Meshtastic is a messaging network that doesn't require cell service, Wi-Fi, phone number, or control by any company or government. This network is 100% community run. What's the point? 1. Maintain end-to-end encrypted messaging under repressive regimes who can cut off your Wi-Fi and cell service. Militaries also use this because it's a lot less trackable than a phone. 2. Power outages from natural disasters and cyber incidents. 3. Areas with weak signals like hikes, concerts, boats. 4. Track location of people and objects without relying on data-hungry apps or companies. Mesh network works similarly to how you pass notes to your bestie in class. Your mesh device is a node. Each node has limited range like your arm's length. If your bestie is far, your message has to be carried by another node to get there. So the more nodes join your mesh network, the farther your messages go. Cybersecurity and privacy limitations. Your mesh devices are not private by default, which is why I included all the necessary settings in this guide. So please follow every single step and reach out to me if you need any help. Your messages can be end-to-end encrypted, but your message headers, which include your device's ID and timestamps, are not. So please don't assume anonymity and use it for super confidential conversations. TDEC Plus is the easiest to start with. Also less trackable because you don't need to pair it with a phone. You can also add your own GPS map on here. The full guide is on our website at cyberlixir.com if you search for Meshtastic. The post on our Cyberlixir Insta is 90% full because I could only post 20 pics. When I first tried to set this up correctly, it was painful because instructions online was just so confusing. I want the guide to be helpful for you. So please, if you feel frustrated, if you don't understand something, reach out to me. I'm here for you.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
That is such an amazing system. And, you know, I've got so many questions, and I know we have some of the People's Core group in here and they're in the chat. If you have any questions about it, please, you know, post them in the chat and we'll read them out. I guess one of my main questions is, you might, I don't know if you said it in the video, but what is the range on the system?
Right. So the range is about, since you're in the UK, maybe I should use like both meters and miles as well. So it's 1 kilometer to 10 kilometers for UK people, and it's 0.6 miles to around 6 miles. And it's not limited to this range, right? A lot of this Meshtastic range depends on the environment as well. So with good environment, the record has been 300 kilometers. So it can travel that far. And Meshtastic works best with line of sight, meaning little physical obstructions between like buildings and trees between two nodes, right? So you can get a pretty good line of sight by getting higher up. A lot of people put their nodes like high up on buildings, like really tall ones or tall trees to relay over the obstacles. And also messages can reach further than that if there are lots of nodes in a network. So more devices, the stronger the network will be. But I
Great.
think we should, yeah. Also just like going back to your question about like how this can be a global thing. Meshtastic can be used everywhere, and there are like Meshtastic communities in Australia, in the UK, in Canada, Hong Kong, just like everywhere. Like people are like experimenting and using this network because everyone is thinking like we need to go off grid. We need to find ways to, you know, protect ourselves in case the governments, the system go rogue.
Or when they do.
Yeah,
Inevitably, yeah, because here
exactly.
they were trying to bring in digital ID, which is like that one ID for everything. You use it to shop and bank and work and live. And, you know, literally, if you didn't have one, like this is like an aim for 2030. If you don't have one, you're not, you literally won't be able to do anything. And the people fought back here, and I think it has been overturned, or we're waiting for that decision. A couple of other questions I had on, some of the group have on Meshtastic. Does the weather affect it?
Definitely. Yeah, like there's a snowstorm right now, and the snow will prohibit the signals from, you know, like bouncing off or going around. So which is again like why we need, you know, more people having Meshtastic devices, because like the stronger the network, the less physical obstructions will be the problem. Also, I think
Yeah.
it'd be beneficial if we explain what Meshtastic is, because
Yeah.
in the video I said it like pretty quick, but I'm not sure if
Yes.
like everyone understands.
Yeah, please. Yeah, clarify. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to explain this in like the clearest and simplest way possible for those who are non-technical people to understand. So I'll break it down into parts, and please let me know if you need any clarification at any point, right? So first of all, Meshtastic is a communication network. Now, what is a network? A system of connected parts. So to visualize a network, think of the train system, you know, that's connected network of train stations. Think of the plane system. That's a connected network of airports. Wi-Fi is a network. It's invisible, but you can visualize the train system, right? Cellular is a network that works the same way. So because Meshtastic is its own network, separate from Wi-Fi network and the cellular network, when your Wi-Fi and cellular networks are down, you can still use Meshtastic to communicate. So that's the first big thing. Meshtastic is a communication network. The second part is it's community run. Who do you think has total control over our Wi-Fi and cellular networks?
Yeah. The governments, the
government.
authorities, everybody.
Exactly. So we call this the grid. They are in charge of the grid. And this enables governments to spy on our communications, right? If you send text messages to someone, it's locked in a cell tower with our location, with our phone number. Also, your online activities, the reason why we are asking people to use a VPN is because like all our web activities are locked because they own the system. What else do you think they can do? They can cut off our access if they want to. They can increase the prices if they want to. And a lot of communities already don't have access to Wi-Fi and cellular, right? Decide which areas have access to Wi-Fi and cellular. If you're nice to the government, you get access. If you're not, you don't get access. This is because the Wi-Fi and cellular networks work this way. So we have like a phone, a device. It like everything goes through a server. I don't know if you can see this, but
Yes.
this is like a
Yeah.
server that they control. And then the server will transmit the signal to another device. So it's like device, server, device. With Meshtastic network, it's device to device. So as long as you have at least 2 nodes, like what I have here, this is a network. So instead of relaying to a server, it uses device relay. So this, the message on this device, which is like hop onto this device. We call this a decentralized system. It's a self-sustaining network run by the community. So as long as you own the device itself, you can communicate.
Amazing. And when you say it's owned by the community, I'm just trying to picture it if, you know, where I live in my city and my comrades and we want to talk, without being surveilled. How would we run that as a community? How does that actually look? And, how do we do that?
Just everyone in the neighborhood has a Meshtastic device, and we'll just like messages will just bounce off each other. If you want to talk to someone, like 2 blocks away, we have a node on the next block and another node on the next block, and it would just like jump like that.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
amazing. And I
Yeah.
assume you can use a voice facility as well as a text facility.
So this is another part about Meshtastic. Meshtastic uses LoRa, which stands for low power, long range protocol. And this can only transmit light packets of data. So it can send like short messages or a notification or a pin where you are. You can't send like pictures or voice messages with it.
Yeah. So it's good though, because, the kind of communication you want to do when you don't want to be, watched, or, well, you never want to be watched, but, that does the job. That actually, facilitates what you're trying to do. So, it's solving a big problem. Another question someone says in the chat is, what about bouncing it off the atmosphere? Are we good enough with the math yet to use that in a way to have them come back down where you want them?
Not quite, but a lot of Meshtastic enthusiasts that I know invest in drones. So it was just like flying up there. And, like in my area, some people have drones like ready just in case a snowstorm, like collapses our system of communication, and people need to communicate. And it's like it's best to have the nodes up high. So we have like drones like ready just to be sent out there. It's pretty cool.
Wow. That is so cool, because we
Yeah.
know that drones are usually used for bad stuff when it comes to the government and armies and things. It's like, it's good to see drones being used for the greater good.
Exactly. The next part of Meshtastic is it uses the 915 megahertz radio frequency band in the US. This sounds like a little abstract, but basically the reason why I'm mentioning this is it's very hard for the government to mess with this, because a lot of smart devices use that to communicate as well. So security cameras, people's garages, your smoke alarms, factory automations, emergency responders, they all use it. So if they want to turn this off, it'll be a security hazard for everyone, including themselves. And there's also no way to turn this off locally. With Wi-Fi and cell service, they can just turn, like just switch the service off for specific areas, but you can't do that for a Meshtastic network, which makes this super resilient. Another thing though, just to manage people's expectations, it can be jammed. If like if someone is out there and sending out a lot of messages, just to jam the system and make sure that people can't communicate well, that is a problem with Meshtastic, but we are constantly working on this. So it's like an ongoing project, and we're constantly making it better and more efficient to just like tackle these problems. So yeah, that's like a great thing. A lot of people kind of start using it and they're like, oh, but like there's that problem. Just don't let these problems like stop you from learning how amazing it is, because it will eventually be solved.
Yeah, that
Yeah, and I
tends
think
to shut down a lot of sorry, no, go ahead.
it's okay. No, go for it.
That tends to shut down a lot of people's expectations or hopes for certain technologies. Somebody will come in and says, no, I had this problem and this happened, therefore don't use it. It's like when the first, combustion engine was, developed, it had problems. They didn't just give up and be like, okay, well, combustion engines aren't going to work. You have to keep going with it. One of the questions though in the comments by Christina was my question is whether messages can be intercepted, altered, or blocked from getting to the intended contact. Is that ever a problem?
Yes, it can be intercepted, but we're heading to the next part of the Meshtastic system. So Meshtastic has end-to-end encryption, which makes it pretty private. There are two channels, or at least two channels that you can have. One is the public channel that is not encrypted, so messages can be read by everyone. The next one is the private channel, and to read the messages in this channel, you need a specific encryption key. Now, if you feel like intimidated by that word, encryption key, just think of a password. If you don't have the password, you can't read the messages. So messages can be intercepted, but what they will see is a bunch of rubbish. You need the encryption key to actually read the messages, right? Another thing though is even though we have like these, even though it's end-to-end encrypted, it's not anonymous. So think of the mailing system. I can write a message to you, put it in a password protected USB, and mail it to you. The message is private, right? Like even if it's intercepted by someone, if they don't know the password, they can't open the file. But to send it to you, I need to write like from Danacea or like from a certain address. And so like that outside of the letter, we call it message headers. That is not encrypted. So I usually tell people to like not name the device as, you know, your name. And usually it's hard to track the messages back to you. Like if the device name is there, if the device model's name is there, someone who has like a lot of resources can technically look that up and see like who bought this specific device at what time and who that is tied to. But again, like that requires a lot of resources. However, it's best to just assume that that is not encrypted. And so still use this as like a backup option if you can't like use Signal or something like that, because Signal is also more secure. Another security problem with this is a note. There's no lock screen. So if you send a message to this note, it will be showed on the screen. And that's a security problem. So you need to keep this safe and secure, and don't send, if you have like code words or code languages, you know, like meet me at the bar, and the bar means something that only the two of you know, then yeah, that's cool. But some devices don't have a lock screen. This one has a lock screen. And
Yes.
we're building like better devices, more devices. So eventually like these security problems will also be solved.
Yeah, I mean that's version 1, isn't it? You know, so it's like you're only going to build upon that and take feedback, I guess, from people to you know, improve it and you know, broaden the facilities. Mark, you're going to say something.
Well, a few questions, a few comments that were brought up in the chat were that for some people it's cost prohibitive. So this kind of ties in. So we obviously see the benefit of Meshtastic and how decentralized it is, which is key in resistance and is key in, you know, helping average civilians survive and communicate in the event of something being chokeholded or bottlenecked by the state. Now let's see if we can tie this into the 4 winds approach, right? So we have the technology, we have the benefits of it. But for your average neighborhood, in Danacea, I didn't have a chance to check in with you on how far you were able to get into the 4 winds approach, and especially when it comes to organizing an actual neighborhood, a micro locality. What would be the step-by-step process for your neighborhood, just for an average neighborhood somewhere, say in Michigan or in Minnesota, who wants to start setting up this network just for their neighborhood to make their neighborhood resilient? What would be the first steps that they take?
I'd say creating awareness for this, just by sharing the video that I have started. A lot of people like send me messages saying, oh wow, this is so amazing, like I never knew this existed before. I will start like sharing your video with people in my neighborhood, and like we can start doing something together, right? So like one person who watched the video could just like bring a group together and start small, right? Like maybe right now it's just like you and one other neighbor, and you do this together. And then like from there, you can just like expand, like just tell other neighbors
Mhm.
about it, and then just like
Mm.
put flyers outside and stuff like that, host workshops, just bring the awareness that the system is out there. And the next thing is, because Meshtastic is so resilient during natural disasters, right? So at places where natural disasters happened, like hurricane storms, a few years ago, there was a crazy winter storm in Texas. People lost power, internet and cell services were down, grids were frozen. 250 people died in Texas because the pipes were burst, and there was a mutual aid group, but no one could just like communicate with the people. So when these things happened, they were like, oh shit, like what can we do next time to protect ourselves from this, right? And because of these natural disasters problems, because of these like really real just losses, people realize like how important it is to have like a backup communication system before a natural disaster happens again. So at these places, the Meshtastic community is super strong. Like there's a huge Austin, Texas Meshtastic community born because of natural disasters. Like people want to be able to keep communicating. And also what's going on in Minneapolis. The reason why I made that video is a lot of protesters out there reached out to me. They were worried that the government could just shut off their Wi-Fi and cellular network to prevent them from communication. So that is another motivation, you know, for a community to start building a mesh network. And I've been following their mesh network for a while now, and it's just been growing because of this problem. So
And it happened in Iran. It literally happened in Iran when protesters, the Wi-Fi network was turned off, or something went down, and
exactly.
none of the protesters could protect each other and help each other, and so this would be the perfect antidote to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is because, you know, this is like a war tactic that's being used on civilians. So, you know, like during wars, like guess which building was demolished by Israel first on October 9th, 2023. The first airstrikes took down, I think it's pronounced like Al-Watan Tower in Gaza. And that building contained the infrastructure of two main telecommunications providers in the Gaza Strip, where media officers, where the internet service providers were. And, you know, like that was the first thing that they tackled. Russia, Ukraine war, same thing. Almost every modern day war targets telecom communication first, right? It breaks civilian coordination, it disrupts emergency response. With critical infrastructure destroyed, people find it difficult to share information during conflict zone, harder to just connect with their loved ones, harder to coordinate with each other. So that is being used during protests as well, right? Iran cut off internet and mobile services for days. During the Serbia anti-government protests as well, they also did that. And people started looking into these Meshtastic devices because they were worried that they could lose access with their loved ones. But if you wait until something bad happens like that, you know, it'd be too late. These things take a while to ship. Sometimes they're out of stock. So it's important that we are learning these systems right now before, you know, shit hits the fan. And yeah, there's just so many different examples around the world where people like us have the Wi-Fi and cellular, the fiber routes just cut off when we start protesting.
Danacea, the question I have, so we're going back to, there's a comment about the atmosphere. The ham radio world has been very innovative since, you know, early 90s. My dad used to take me to, my dad is a ham radio operator and my grandfather is. So he used to take me to these ham fests, they call them. This is back in the early 90s when I was a little kid. I remember that. I used to go, and this was they were kind of they set the groundwork for cell phones. Basically, they were innovators. They were they were hackers. They were inventors. Is there a way in which the ham radio world, which is full of these amazing creative experts from all around the country, is there a way they could create, they could cooperate with Meshtastic to create an even more redundant system? For example, Meshtastic is it's limited to the nodes. But if they were to implement ham radio communication between say Meshtastic node to carry the message to a further location that can go across the world, is that being worked on? And if not, how feasible would it be to set up a team that could kind of workshop that together and create a Meshtastic ham radio a coalition, I guess, that can merge the two technologies?
So what do you think is the advantage of ham radio? Being able to talk?
Just being able to carry a message to, say, another neighborhood where there might be a gap, in coverage of the mesh network. So, for example, let's say, one neighborhood is getting attacked by, hostile forces, but they're too far away for the mesh task, and let's say that they don't have any nodes in between them and their neighborhood. Is there a way that the mesh network of Meshtastic could they could have somebody in the team send out messages to the next neighborhood who also has a ham radio, and then that can then communicate with their mesh?
Yeah, I mean, with Meshtastic devices, there are many different types of devices. And there are these devices called repeaters, which is like the only purpose is to just like shoot the message out really far away. And that enables, like longer range, just like transmission like that. And it costs a little bit more, but again, this is a community project. So if you want to greatly increase the range, that is already out there. Like I mentioned earlier, there's like a competition about this as well. Like right now, like people are trying to make it even better, like reaching further. And the longest record for this is like 300 kilometers. I don't know what it is in miles. Someone will have to like do the math, but it can reach really long. And there's also another kind of like competition that recently popped up. It's called MeshCore. And the idea behind it is similar to Meshtastic, but MeshCore can deliver like way further than Meshtastic because of the infrastructure behind it. It's a little bit more complicated than Meshtastic because of these infrastructures. So basically, MeshCore is just like a bunch of repeaters strategically placed in an area, and that enables it to deliver the messages like a lot further and a lot more efficiently. But for beginners, like we should study or we should implement Meshtastic first. And all these Meshtastic devices can be used for MeshCore eventually as well. With ham radio, it's also not encrypted, so that can be intercepted, right? If you talk about anything, that's the only downside of ham radio.
Are there ways to implement, are there ways to encrypt ham radio transmissions through like a Meshtastic mechanism, like a translation mechanism that can then be translated from a ham radio receiver on the other end that can then decrypt it if the two neighborhoods coordinate that, I guess, decryption key? Or I don't know. I'm just thinking very abstractly for the hammies out there.
No problem.
Because I know they're going to be watching this.
I haven't really looked into ham radio that much, but I feel like if you could have something like that, it already have been built already, right? Because encryption has been around for a long time and people care about privacy. But since it's still not encrypted, it kind of shows me that maybe that cannot be done. Also, I also kind of heard that ham radio can be controlled by the government. I'm not super sure about that, but it's like more controlled than Meshtastic.
Yeah, it's definitely more tracked. Yeah.
Yeah.
The part about affordability, like you were saying, the daunting, which is probably the most daunting part of it, starting off the bat. Everybody's broke. Well, to answer that question in the audience, that solution is addressed in the Four Winds as well when we talk about collectivizing. So when you form what we call a sovereign community, which consists of 4 houses who develop a relationship with each other and develop, say, a mesh network of communication like Meshtastic or hardwire Ethernet, the collectivizing solves so many issues. There might be somebody in the neighborhood that can afford to buy some for their neighbors. Some cannot. So that's where everybody comes together and says, hey, I can't afford this. Can somebody cover me on this, so that we're all linked up? This is where bartering, this is where collectivizing, all these mechanisms come into place. And that's why it's so important that your first thing that you do is form a council. Like Danacea said, she said, form a team. Even if you only know one person that you get along with in your neighborhood, there's your first council. Bring more people in and say, hey, look, we're trying to equip the whole neighborhood with Meshtastic devices. We can't afford it. Is there any way we can kind of cover these costs? So that's why forming a council is first and foremost, so you can't afford it.
Yeah, and also it doesn't have to be expensive. This one is pretty expensive because it's convenient. This is like about $100, right? To a lot of people, this is expensive. This is less expensive. You can get 2 of these for around $65, but it can still be pretty expensive for some people. However, there's some less expensive way that is less convenient for people, but the people don't have to set this up, right? So when I first got this, it actually didn't come out like this. It arrived with like separate boards, and I have to like put this together. A lot of the Meshtastic devices out there, they're just boards. It looks like maybe someone will like insert a picture here to kind of illustrate what a Meshtastic board looks like. But it just basically comes with a board. It's like a computer. It's like your laptop, but just like with a hardware, like the chip thing inside the laptop, right? And the cover can be 3D printed. So if someone has a 3D printer, they can print out the case for these boards. And these boards cost around $20 or less. So it's not that expensive. There are like cheaper solutions out there. I just introduced these to people because they're the most convenient. Non-technical people might not be able to put these parts together, you know? So if there are technical people in the groups, they can easily build this with just like $20, $15. Easy.
It's funny you mentioned 3D printing, because one of our comrades in the chat says the units themselves can be built with electronics and 3D printed housings. Yeah, and also this same person wanted you to talk on the subject of MPU5 because it's what the authorities are using apparently.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure what that is.
Oh, if the person who wrote that, if you want to just flesh that out a bit and explain what that is, that'd be great. Yeah, and we'll get that question answered for you. Because I know they did say earlier, would she be able to build me an MPU5? So I don't know what that is. I don't know, Mark, do you know what that is?
Yeah, I'm reading about it right now. It says it's a rugged Android-based smart radio that functions as a mobile and ad hoc networking MANnet device, providing secure voice, video, and data communications in complex environments. So basically,
it's got 3 antennas. Apparently, that's what 9 said.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, 3 antennas. Yeah, I'm seeing pictures of it. I'm having a hard time importing into the studio. But yeah, so if anybody in the production team wants to put up a picture of this, she's saying that that's what the authorities are using. So, you know, there's all kinds of technologies.
Yeah, lots of technologies out there. And I'll just be honest, I'm not sure what that is. I haven't looked into it, so I might not be helpful there. Another question asks, many libraries offer 3D printing. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's not illegal to have these nodes. So even in Russia, there's a Meshtastic community there. So absolutely, just buy cheap ones and then 3D print the case, and you're good to go.
Wow, that's amazing that you can do that. It still astonishes me.
It's really awesome.
Yeah, it really is. It makes it really cost effective and accessible. That's what we want, right? But one thing that you touched on was, disaster zones and things like that. I've been hearing more and more that we are headed toward global blackouts for reasons such as if the dollar crashes, and we know that there's a big push-pull thing going on with economically with the US and Europe at the moment. Not to get too into that, but what I mean is this could create global blackouts, of resources, of connectivity and things like that. So I guess this is another amazing and important reason to get a system in place like Meshtastic, because when that does happen, and it seems likely it is going to happen, I think Spain already had a blackout recently. It was last year. What the hell do you do when your phone is not working and the lights go out? Like, I mean, gosh, like that would be terrifying. So to know that you have that communication network from your home, so you don't even have to go outside if it doesn't feel safe. It's so important to have something like this in place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Meshtastic has been through several test cases already. Like in 2022, there was a hurricane in Florida. It was a huge one. And most people there was nearly a total state blackout. And luckily, because of what happened in Austin, Texas, people already started looking into Meshtastic, and they just tested this out, see how resilient it is. And everyone who had a Meshtastic device, they were able to communicate with each other. But sadly, a lot of people didn't. So they couldn't get to they were not being communicated. Where are the safe spaces to hide? Where are the mutual aid groups? Where are people just delivering food and water and stuff like that? So the more these things happen, the more I think people realize that we need, getting prepared as soon as possible.
We're trying to develop a community communications team in the People's Corps that can help really provide a standard system that every neighborhood can adopt that can prevent these failures in communication. So that, let's say, obviously not everybody's going to have a Meshtastic device in the neighborhood. We would like that, but let's say that they can't. But they might know somebody who does have one of those devices. So this is why organization is so critical. You need to have all of this organized and prearranged before these things strike, instead of doing it as they're happening. So that's what I kind of want to ask you about. Did you have a chance to look at any of the pieces of the Four Winds that talked about organizing neighborhoods around like a central a command center or a crisis center?
Yeah.
How do you see how this can be implemented in that system, and how can a system be established in a neighborhood using that and incorporating Meshtastic?
Can you please quickly remind me what the prize system is?
What the what?
You mentioned the prize system?
Like a command center, a communication system. So the Four Winds, there's a outline of how neighborhoods can, by creating a council, can start assigning roles. So for example, a council can assign somebody in the community. You're going to be the communications expert. You're going to form a central command or a crisis suite in the neighborhood, so that if a disaster strikes, neighbors can go to that person for communications, because they're like the nerve hub, where if somebody's on the east side of the neighborhood sees something happening, or they're setting up a mutual aid station, they communicate that to the central command. The central command then dissipates that information to everybody who's not in the know or who doesn't. And you can use something like Meshtastic to communicate that. But obviously some people will not have a Meshtastic device. So that neighbor that's not equipped with that, he already knows the neighbor he needs to go to get information from that might be in a communication. So something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. This is already in place. And this is why how Meshtastic communities are kind of set out to be. So community groups like Austin Mesh and SoCal Mesh, they explicitly frame their work as building a sovereign infrastructure. And the goal is to just decouple local communication from corporate oligarchies of like internet service providers and tech giants and the governments. And they have just been out there telling the community to adopt these devices. So in case, like a disaster happens, they would just be the network of mutual aid. So like reach out to them, talk about like where to get medicines from, where to get food from. So a Meshtastic network is not just about like communication, right? They're also just like preparers for like disasters, and they have like resources that prepare people for this.
Right. Is there, let's say somebody in the audience wants to know how to contact these support groups and these mentors. There's a route they can take to communicate. Like, let's say you're in a random neighborhood somewhere in Ohio, and nobody in your immediate vicinity knows anything about Meshtastic. They can contact your group and then get mentorship from them and get that guidance.
Yeah, a lot of the existing Meshtastic networks, they want this to spread out to like other states, other cities as well. So they just invite people to contact them. Again, like Austin Meshtastic, I've been mentioning them a lot because they're so passionate about just like spreading awareness, like building the system basically everywhere. And so I included the contact on like in my Meshtastic guide, how to set up and how to like just reach your community or reach other communities, even if they're not within your area. They'd be happy to help.
Yeah. No, that's really good. It's good to know that there are huge networks of people in cities and places out there who are actually adopting a method, to using them, not just a couple of people, There's a couple more questions. So does adding a repeater jeopardize system security in the same way that having a server between devices does?
No. If anything, it makes it safer. It makes it stronger because nodes can go further. And the only thing that it does is to shoot out the message. So, oh, Mark is gone.
It's okay. He is there, but he is in the backstage. So let me just timestamp it 126. 26 Mark. I'll make a note of that. Okay. He will come back. So we will wait.
So the only thing that a repeater does is just to shoot out the message. Like you don't need to open the message or you don't need to check the message from a repeater. So in a way, it's like safer than these or receivers, right?
Yeah. That makes sense. And there is a longer question here. And Danacea, I don't know if you can see the chat so that you can take a look. It's a private chat if you're on the right-hand side of the screen. The person has said, could we get clear steps for how someone with minimal resources could get started? That's the main part of the question, actually. Yeah.
Minimal resources, and I assume they're also pretty non-technical. I'd say it can be a little difficult. It can be a little difficult to get started, but it's important to think about this not as like a thing that you have to do alone, right? If you feel like you need help, try to search for someone. If you know someone who's technical, reach out to them and ask them if they know about Meshtastic, or ask them if they can help you set this up. Because I created this guide that is like really simple to understand, and they can help you set it up. You can, in terms of resources, like I mentioned, it's like $20, $15. That's probably like the lowest one can go. If you do it together as a community and you fundraise for this, you can probably do better. You can probably have more fund, but
that's what pooling money is all about. You collectivize. Somebody has enough money to get at least 4 people And this is why it comes back to not being so individualistic. Like we waste money on all kinds of stuff in capitalism, on luxuries that we don't need. If we're investing in something that equips our neighbors, it will benefit us in the long run, So
Yeah, and also around the world, there are like independent groups that have the money and they just go around different neighborhoods and just teach them about this with like with very low cost devices that already set up by them. In Serbia, there's this group called Nuvu School, and they teach basically just kids about or children in schools about off-grid communication. And it's pretty amazing. And also really sad because I read about like this project in Syria, and it said that kids wanted a way to communicate that was not controlled by corporates or governments because they went through such a long time of just like these people abusing the Wi-Fi and the cellular networks, taking it down. And these kids just got tired of it, right? And they just wanted something that only like they own. And we're looking into like a system that's similar to Meshtastic, but had the internet, and the internet overwhelms them because they never experienced the internet before. So they resorted to Meshtastic, which was simpler. They could understand messaging and it was like friendly to them. And the kids just got really excited. And all these notes were provided for them basically by this group. So the more we emphasize the importance of this, the more groups like that we will see that just like give out free services, free hardwares for the people.
There was the question that Celtic was reading off of. Christina had a good thought. And I don't know if I'm not trying to put pressure on you for this right now, but she was saying, is there a step-by-step, if you were an average person and there was a step-by-step approach that you took, like in a very abstract way, what would you do? Like starting off with, like, let's say you had minimal resources, minimal money, but you can afford some of the Meshtastic, equipment. Starting with step 1, what would you do? Step 2, step 3, step 4?
Yeah, this is why I created the Meshtastic guide. It has like step-by-step of like the first time you have the device, and then after that, what you do. And throughout every part, there are like screenshots. So you can see exactly what you need to do, where you need to press, where you need to click on, and stuff like that. We can share the link here sometime.
Yeah.
So people can see what the guide looks like, but every single step is on that guide. And I've had people who had never set up a Meshtastic device before told me that this guide was super helpful, and they just set it up on their own because of that guide. And if you have any question, if you struggle with anything, just reach out to me. I would be down for like a quick video call. It's really not that hard to set it up. But if if anything confusing, I'm here for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we can attach videos, and I know you obviously have tutorials, I think, on YouTube. Is that what you said?
It's on my website at cyberlixir.com, or just search Cyberlixir Meshtastic on your favorite search engine, and it'll be there. And it's a PDF file.
Yes. Yeah. So pretty clear, step by step, how to get started, how to get set up.
Awesome. And what we'll do is we will push this out to the greater People's Core community so that they have access to this, and we'll include it in part of community organizing and community communications.
Yeah.
I have a question, if you don't mind, if you have a bit of time, Danacea. If you were to kind of visualize the future of Meshtastic and the world and how it's used, I mean, what do you see? What is the future of Meshtastic?
I've just been passionate about Meshtastic because there's a lot more to it than just messaging. I also shared this in one of the videos, and it's on my Cyberlixir Meshtastic page as well. The more people understand this, the more we can do with it. So there's this device, like you can mostly message with it. There's also another device like this that you can use to just like track things with it. And there's another device that can be modified to put out like environmental sensors. So like air quality, if there's a wildfire coming, smoke alarms or something like that, like just basic sensors like that, like we can build. There's Wi-Fi that can be built, not with Meshtastic, but similar idea. And this is already implemented out there. If you search up NYC Mesh, you see that they're building just free Wi-Fi for New York City. And the idea is the same. Basically, they have like these Wi-Fi nodes that they set up on top of buildings, and the community can just use that Wi-Fi without having to pay for Wi-Fi services, which already costs a lot. And I'd love to see that direction, right? Like we have a decentralized system that we run that doesn't cost people anything. You know, people, if Meshtastic is a thing that everyone uses, we don't even need phone numbers that can be tracked anymore. And everyone can just have access to texting, right? Instead of having to pay for monthly cell network, cell data, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's really
it's just
great
like a
to
one, you know, one cost, and then that's it. You're flying.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
Mark?
that's again, that's another thing that this is what is beautiful about like how we set up the Four Winds is that the Four Winds was just kind of like the trunk of the tree. We need the branches on it. And this is the stuff that we're trying to absorb these types of techniques and I guess facilities for communities. We can absorb that into the Four Winds so that this document is constantly evolving and the approach is constantly evolving so that it's all in one spot where people can figure out ways to have common services that everybody in the neighborhood could use, you know?
Yeah, the Four Winds is just so amazing. You know, it's all about communism and being self-sustained and being decentralized, which is just so amazing. And we're talking about like you know, when we talk about imagining a future, it's about how we build new systems as well, right? And a lot of the time after a war is over, the occupying forces frequently enters and try to rebuild a country and improve it by replacing the pre-existing infrastructure with their own. So, you know, like what's going on in Gaza, or yeah, just like many places, right? Like we have the US just eyeing it and be like, we can just like put our things in there instead. They bomb civilians and civilian structures only to proclaim, you know, like, look at how you lack essential services. So let us be the heroes who can restore power for you. And it's just, you know, people are sick of that. And it goes back to like my projects that I mentioned about in Syria after the civil war, like people were just saying, we're sick of these powers owning and having control of our communication network. And this is the time for us to like build our own. These kids want Meshtastic to be the future.
Yeah, of course. And it's the Gen A and the Gen Zs. And, you know, once they discover this and they know what's going on in the world, it's going to be such an important mechanism for them to have, I think. Because they are the future of the world, you know, and the world is heading in a very sinister direction. So they need to be safe and communicate in a safe way and, you know, make sure they're protecting each other and themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any...
I was going to say, and part of that is the beautiful thing about using something like Meshtastic is neighborhoods. There's obviously the danger of infiltration. Of any organizing group, and the key to that is there's an unspoken language within every community, right? I remember the head of Hezbollah was talking about how they knew that the Israelis were spying in on the radio frequencies and knowing what they were saying, but that didn't matter because the people operating on the ground in Lebanon, they were from certain villages and tribes that spoke their own type of, slang. So when somebody in the tribe was talking about, hey, we have 5 chickens coming in, Israelis didn't know what they were talking about, and only the people in the village knew what that code language meant, which is very important. That part of building community, part of getting intimate with your community, is developing that secret code language that only your community knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a greater communication system when you have multiple neighborhoods linked together. That region of neighborhoods has their own language, so that it's kind of a safeguard, so that if there is somebody from the outside that has hostile intent, that works for the state or works for, some type of nefarious group, they don't know what's being said. They don't understand the local language. So they're in the dark. And that's why code language, while it can be used to be cliquey, it also can be used to form an intimacy with neighbors, because that's my neighbor, he knows what this word means. So that's why incorporating the code language with Meshtastic when you're communicating is vital, So just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And yes, there's always risk of infiltration, but having this decentralized system is actually much better for communication, because, like everything is with the Wi-Fi and the cellular network, everything is stored in the servers, like in one place. So as long as, like if they have access to the server, they can just like see everything. But because these are so decentralized, like with the channels that I mentioned earlier, each channel can be protected with an encryption key. If we have multiple channels, that means we have multiple encryption keys. And if we can start the conversation with channel 1, send out a piece of communication in channel 1. If that is infiltrated, then they will just get that piece. But if they want to get like the rest of the communication, which we can send it to like channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, they need to know all the encryption keys. And that will make it a lot more difficult to infiltrate, right? So the first one, it can be like, meet me here. The channel 2 will be, we'll talk about this. So just like split up the communication into different channels, which has like multiple encryption keys. And so if one channel is infiltrated, the other channels might be safer, or it'll be a lot more difficult to infiltrate them.
Yeah, and we want to make it as hard as possible, because anti-surveillance and security should be at the forefront of, any movement for a start. If I'm thinking about the people's core, and also, we need to protect ourselves, especially in, in the more extreme situations like what's been happening in the US at the moment with the ICE, and for people to be able to communicate safely and feel safe doing so. So I think it's a real antidote, a real solution to a big problem we have at the moment. And I, for one, I'm definitely going to get one. I am definitely hands down going to get one. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I want to have fun with it. I want to explore it and kind of learn as I go. When we developed the People's Core, one of the things that I was looking forward to is that the People's Core can teach me. Like, we're just trying to get it started so that I personally can benefit too. It's like I got a whole family of mentors that are then going to tell me, okay, Mark, here's what you need to do, and then I can, follow along, and they can make it, stupid simple for me. Because keeping it stupid simple is key. It's a strategy, it's a tactic, so that everybody can benefit, and not only the tech savvy can benefit. And I have a degree in electronics engineering technology, and I suck at it. I suck at electronics more than your average, teenager. Like I went to school for it, got my degree, but I know nothing about it, because all the knowledge that I learned is completely, it's obsolete now. So.
Yeah.
Well,
Technology.
I'm here for you. I'm here for every single person. I'm doing this because I want to give people the power. And there are a lot of like tech people out there who just talk in even in a way that I don't understand. And I'm technical, and I understand that pain. I feel that pain. And I want to, keep this as simplified as possible, as helpful as possible. So again, if you use the guide and if there's something that you don't understand, reach out to me. I'd be happy to update the guide as well as meeting you through a video call and just help have fun, set it up, over coffee, over pizza, whatsoever. It's a fun community activity. I've
That sounds
seen
good. Let's
this
do that.
happen.
You
Yeah, I've
had
seen this
me at
happen many
pizza. You
times.
had me at pizza. So I'm
Yeah.
in.
You say pizza. That was it. I'm like, what? Pizza?
There's
All
something
right,
about
let's do
pizza.
it.
I'm gonna learn on pizza.
Yeah, I mean, Mark,
Yeah.
like you asked me a question about like how communities can implement this and adopt this new technology. Honestly, like every community are driven by different things, right? Like in Minneapolis right now, they might not be driven by severe natural disasters or weather, but when we talk about, the government's ability to control Wi-Fi and cellular and how it can be cut off anytime, they start to care. In Austin, Texas, or places with a lot of natural disasters that happen to them, they can relate to that more. And with you guys, you want a decentralized system, communism, self-sustained, in the future moving forward. This is what we're building together. And yeah, that's how you get people on board. And pizza as well. It's keep it fun, keep it just
Yes.
the connection is so important. So yeah, it's
Keep
one
it
of
human, right?
hmm
Yeah. Keep
Are
that
are you
Yeah.
in
connection.
tight are you in tight connection with communities in Vietnam? Like, are you do you have a big involvement there in footprint?
Not really. They don't really understand what I do.
I was
Um,
curious
yeah, I'm
because
not, yeah, I'm
I
very well
we
known.
really you're known in Vietnam,
No, I'm very well known in the US, but not in
but in
Vietnam.
non-Vietnam. Well, I mean, because that's one region that we really want to establish a presence is in Vietnam, because Vietnam was a huge inspiration for the Black Panther Party in the 1960s. Huey P. Newton was so captivated by their spirit of resistance that he even did a call out to the Black Panthers to send soldiers from the Black Panther Party to help Vietnam in their struggle. And I only ask because it's something that we want to do. We want to establish a presence in Vietnam with the People's Corps. We could really use their knowledge, their inspiration, and we would really like that intercommunal communication and diplomacy between us. So I was just curious,
That is certainly something that I'd love to look into as well. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been back very often because of my visa situation and also how crazy it's been with this, with the government controlling foreigners' visas. So a lot of lawyers just tell me to like, don't leave the US in case they change the policy and you're stuck out there forever, which is why I've been just like stuck here. But in the future, I'm in the process of getting a really good visa, and hopefully I'll be able to go back and forth more easily and establish something like that with y'all.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And come to the UK. Come to the UK as well.
Yeah, it'd be really fun.
You could do a tour. You could do a Meshtastic tour.
Oh, I've gotten a lot of that request. Just like going to different cities, helping people set up like just doing a Meshtastic workshop, and
Yeah.
people were just like, I pay to be in that class, like
Yeah.
and be around other people, just like learning how this works. It'd be very helpful for my community. So it's there. Yeah, I got lots of requests for that. Obviously, like I'm not thinking about like, oh, like how much can I charge these people? I want it to be free. But
Oh
yeah,
no, but you have
eventually
to
I'd
cover
love to
your
do
costs.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to cover
Yeah.
your costs. And we could have pizza in real life.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
a lot of that has already been happening with all these Meshtastic workshops, like they're like just a bunch of nerds being in the same room together, ordered pizza, and just work on these devices. And the reason why I have like more than two is because if something happens, like if a natural disaster happens and we never know, I can just like give this to someone. I can keep this one, just like give this to like my neighbor or something. They can run away with this and I can still be in contact with them. So those who can't afford more notes, they can just like give out these notes to other people
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
something bad
Mutual
happens.
aid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
it.
The 4 wins, right?
Yes.
So important.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Okay, well, I think the phase 2 of Meshtastic has to be a global tour, and please come to the UK. There'll be many people here. I have many comrades who are going to be interested in this episode specifically. I think that everything that we've discussed, like I keep saying, it is literally solving a global problem we have at the moment with surveillance and interceptions and infiltration. And we want to stay safe out there. So thank you so much for sharing all of that, Danacea.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my honor to be here and talk to you and sharing with the community. Power to the people. The
Power
more
to the
we
people.
learn, yeah, the
We're all
more power we
starstruck
have.
by you. We've been seeing your videos, so that's the problem with doing episodes and podcasts, is like we're kind of enamored by the person that we're looking at, because like, oh my gosh, we've been fangirling over you for a while, so now we get to see
It's like I follow her.
all the questions that were originally in our head. Some of them fly out the door because we're in your presence. So thank you so much.
We'll
You're
rewatch it.
Yeah, we'll rewatch it. Yeah. You're such a kind
Yeah,
soul.
power to
You're a
the
beautiful
people.
soul. Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah.
you. You too as well.
And thank you for caring about our well-being, and thanks for asking that question earlier. It
Yes.
really was. It got a lot of love in the chat as well, and let's continue that. Let's learn from that. Yes, we're having this conversation about cyber security and surveillance and things, but yeah, let's check in on each other too. I think that's a really good takeaway from this episode.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, any concluding thoughts, Mark?
How does it feel to host your first episode?
Oh, well, we had a lot of technical difficulties.
Yeah, besides all that. Hey,
me particularly. This is going to be edited out, guys, but my laptop just literally KO'd in the middle of the episode, so you won't see that. But anyway, no, I really enjoyed it, and I just love learning about people and what they're doing and learning about new things, and I've loved it. I really have. So thank you so much for being here, Danacea, sharing that, and thanks everyone for being here in the chat, and thanks everybody for watching as well. It's long may this continue.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And congratulations for this role. You're doing great.
Yes, she is. She
I'm
sure
so proud
is.
of you.
Yeah. She's a natural.
Oh, stop it! Don't stop. Thank you so much, guys.
Well,
okay,
don't forget. Yeah, don't forget to check out her links in the description. Go check out the 4 wins, and while you're watching her video, also keep in mind the 4 wins and how you can incorporate what she's saying and what she's teaching you into the strategy of organizing your neighborhood. Who's going to be the tech guy or the tech gal? Who's going to be the comms officer? Who's going to organize the neighborhood around this? As you're listening to all these great pointers from her and these strategies, learn how you can then organize that for your neighbors. Don't just because not everybody's going to have the time to watch her video, but you will. So it's going to be incumbent upon you to be the leader in your neighborhood and learn how to disseminate that information to your neighborhood and organize. So keep that in mind, fam.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. All power.
All power.
All power.